Mike. Jim, Chef Ryan is watching. Hello, Jim. How are you? Victoria's there. Please mention me. Hi, Victoria. Tell me about your life. If you've got any questions, tonight we're going to be talking about Mr. Commitment. I know it's backwards, but, it's forwards here. Tonight we're going to be talking about Mr. Commitment. So if you've got any questions about Mr. Commitment, or any questions at all, really, I'm quite happy to talk them. But yeah, we'll be talking about that. So I'm going to do a few more highs. Joe says hi. Katie says hi. Deborah says hi. Hello, Angela and Trudy and Tony. And Tony is watching all the way from the Philippines. Have I been to the Philippines? I've never been to the Philippines. But as soon as this lockdown's over, I would love to come over. So yeah. Hello, Deborah. Janet. Janet's always there. I shouldn't take Janet for granted, though. I mean, she might go and watch other authors. Who knows? Chris is here. And Nick. Andeep. Hi, Andeep. How are you? Thomas is here. He says, good to see you again. Hope you're fine. I am well. In fact, we didn't talk about this last time, but how are you all coping with sort of lockdown? It's strange, isn't it? So yeah, please let me know how you're coping and what strategy you've got for coping. Are some of you going out to work? And how is it out there? Let's see. Oh, Richard says hi, and Lynn. There's a wave from Larissa. Joe Star says, bring on the broccoli. Oh, I'm confused by that. Is that a Mr. Commitment reference? If so, I've forgotten it, which is a bit embarrassing. So let me know what that broccoli reference is to. Chris Braithwaite says hello. Nick Coulson and Samantha are here in the house. Michael Robert is there watching. There's Robert and Thomas. John's back again. Hello, John there. Clay Rayner. Martin as well. Mike Day says, I can relate to your main character so much, especially the Manchester references, I'm guessing that is. I did go to university I went to university in Salford, which is why there are so many Manchester references in my books. It's just like, wherever I live, okay, I'll write about that place. QA says, Mr. Commitment was my very first book before my Gayle binging. That's interesting. Now, here's a question. If you are currently reading Mr. Commitment, that would be lovely to know. Let me know. If you recently read it, it would be lovely to know what you thought of it. If you've reread it recently, that would be really great to know how reading it has changed from reading it back in the 90s to reading it, here in 2020. It's a long time, really. Andy says, Poonam says hi from Four Oaks. Paul is watching. Tony says waves. Jennifer Waitley Kidduff says, hi Mike, looking forward to hearing from you talk. We are trying not to kill each other here. Robert says, hey Mike, would love to see one of your books as a movie. Any plans? Now here's a story from relating to that from Mr. Commitment. So when Mr. Commitment came out, it was really strange. Everything suddenly went really exciting, and I remember my agent calling me and saying, "Oh, we just had they had someone from they passed it over to basically their LA agents, and their LA agents loved it and thought it was amazing, and." I got an email from them saying that, they gave me a long list of who they were going to send it to in terms of trying to get a film deal. And it was like Robert De Niro's production company and Danny DeVito's production company. I was like, oh, great, fantastic. And unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it came really close, so people got really excited about it. And, I think it would make a really good film. So we got a hi from Copenhagen there. So that's hello there. Janet says she's been watching Carol Matthews too. Helen Fowler is watching, and Helen has been a Mike Gayle reader for years and years and years. So hello to you, Helen. Helwen. Sorry, that's it. Helwen. And hope you and your family are well. Have you got Billy bookcases? Somebody is asking. Yes, I have. Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, they sort of suit the purpose, don't they? Really. Deborah says she's been cleaning and gardening and reading and drinking red wine. I've been drinking red wine, but I have been eating like it's gone out of fashion. It's like I feel like it. Lots of people have said it feels like the sort of bit between Christmas and New Year, and it does feel like it's never ending. Charlene says, we get a Farouk says hi from Sarajevo, so hello there. Charlene says hi, you legend, and from Portsmouth. Catherine Bryant says I had cauliflower cheese for tea, and asked about broccoli. I had lasagna, and it was very nice. So I love that this is the level of discussion that we're having here. Jane's working from home, dealing with a moody 13-year-old. Got a shout out from Wolverhampton here from Deborah. Louise says, think I'm a few seconds out of the event page waiting for you. How do I catch up? I have no idea. If anybody knows how she should catch up, just let Louise Flocco know. Suzanne says, as mentioned before, one coping strategy would be to challenge to read one of my books every week. So Suzanne's just finished My Legendary Girlfriend and is now reading Mr. Commitment. Paul says, I'm a favourite writer, thank you. And Helen says, I'm buying ASAP in work, so it's hard. So it's so hard. You helped me through it. Oh, thank you very much. I think Helen's at work, so let's do a little shout out for Helen. Ivana is watching. Helen says, I haven't read it since it first came out. Says Helen, she hasn't watched. She hasn't read Mr. Commitment since it first came out. And to be honest, I can't remember. Sometimes I pick up my books and I'll read a few chapters, but I haven't read Mr. Commitment cover to cover probably in about 10, 15 years. Nicoletta says, I can't believe you're on air. Happy to see you. Love to see you. David says, haven't read Mr. Commitment for many years. Been working through your books in the last few weeks. Mike Day says he's going to reread them. John Whedon says he's working from home and he's going out once a day for a walk or a run. He's not really enjoying lockdown. Rebecca says she went to Salford Uni with me too. She studied English Lit, so she's probably she graduated in 2001, so she's a bit far behind me. Paul Harris has got a question about did you always have an idea to do a Chorlton trilogy? That's a good one. I suppose I just like Manchester. I particularly liked Chorlton. There was something really lovely about it, and I've got friends there, and it just seemed to sort of suit the sort of people that the characters I was writing about. We've got a Gillian Duffy in the house here, she shares the main character's surname. We got a shout out from Paisley. Richard Anthony Morris is there. Hi, Richard. Richard is a long time reader. Jilly Carter says that she's read all of my books 6 times, each besides the last 2, which she's read twice. I think that's probably some sort of record, and you probably know the books more than I do, or better than I do. It's nice that I'm not up against Boris Johnson this week, so hopefully it was quite funny. There was a sudden massive dip when he suddenly came on TV, and people were wondering what the next piece of bad news was. So it's lovely to have you back, and hopefully you'll stay for a while. So Rachel Fell says, I'm not isolating because I'm a nurse. So a big shout out for Rachel doing massively important work, and thank you very much for all you're doing for us all. Denise Holtz there, so saying hello there. Justin Edwards is back. Carolyn Russell says, Hi, Mike. Been looking forward to your live stream all week. It's been a very long week. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. I'm actually really glad that you've all come because, last week I was thinking to myself, oh, maybe once a week is a bit too much. And maybe I should do it once a fortnight. But if you're enjoying it, I'm happy to do it as long as you're happy to turn up. Lawrence Mark says, do you have any signed copies to buy anywhere? That's something I can probably sort out probably once this lockdown's over, and we can get post guaranteed and stuff. Yes, another question from Michael Robert about is there going to be a turning 50? It seems to be question I get asked most, and I would love to write a turning 50. As I was saying last week, I'd never. I think I've written. It's always been. I've written them after I've had the birthday. So even if I was going to do it, it wouldn't be until the big birthday, so I can know what I'm talking about. Helen says Helen Armour is she's a support worker with adults, and I'm guessing she's still working because they probably still need her. So she says that these my books have been helping her through. So thank you very much for that. Tina Marie Cooney says, hello, my favourite author. Thank you very much. And Julie Morris says, I read it in. Oh, it's Morhis. Oh, that's an interesting surname. I read in French. I've read it, one of my books in French many years ago. I loved your book. And then she's read the rest in English. Right, so, all right. Eva Maria says, hello from Austria. I'm international. I'm glad that you've all turned up here at the right time because I've got, the clocks have gone forwards and backwards and all over the place. We've got a shout out here from Karen Close from Northfield. So let me think. Right, we're going to talk about Mr. Commitment, and then I'll do a few more shout outs and things like that. So this is my book, Mr. Commitment. I know it's backwards, but it is Mr. Commitment. This is the new rejacketed version, so I'm guessing most of you will have the older version. Let me see. I can't even see it on the thing. But so I'll talk a little bit about Mr. Commitment. Mr. Commitment. It says the front cover says Mr. Commitment, and the tagline is to live together or not to live together. That is the question. And here's the blurb on the back. After 28 years of shirking responsibility, Duffy is finally realising that he can't extend his adolescence forever. His low-paid temping job is threatening permanency. His gradually receding hairline is depressing him greatly. And if that's not enough, his long-suffering girlfriend Mel wants to get engaged. Trips to IKEA, dinner parties with married couples, and talk of babies, however, are giving Duffy cold feet. Can he really put his hand on his heart and say, I do? He knows Mel's the one for him, so why is it that he'd feel happier swapping till death do us part for renewable on a 4-year basis? But the choice is all or nothing. So after a life as Mr. Irresponsible, does Duffy have what it takes to become Mr. Commitment? Right, so I'm going to read the opening chapter from Mr. Commitment. So, the chapter's entitled, Let's Talk About Us. Have I missed something here? It was an ordinary Thursday evening in January, or at least I thought so. I was round at my girlfriend Mel's flat, and it was to her that I'd aimed my question, as for some unknown reason she just turned off the TV, even though I'd quite clearly been watching it. What really wound me up, however, was that the fact that she'd used the remote control to do it, adding insult to injury. It was an unofficial rule of ours that I looked after all TV channel changing duties, in the same way that Mel got first grazing rights on the top layer of any box of chocolates that came into our possession. We'd arrived at these and various other rules through a process of trial and error over the course of our 4-year relationship. These rules made me happy. I always knew where I stood. But when you abandon rules, there's bound to be chaos. And right now, what I had on my hands was a serious case of anarchy. My obviously deranged beloved pursed her perfect full lips together and blew into the end of the remote haughtily, as if she'd just battled the TV for my attention and won. There's no need for you to be quite so pleased with yourself, I thought. After all, it was only a repeat of Star Trek, the episode where Kirk and co go back in time to Earth in the early 1920s America, and Spock has to wear a woolly hat to cover his pointy ears. A young Joan Collins is in it, and Kirk, surprise, surprise, snogs her. I wasn't a Trekkie, but I'd seen this episode a million times before, and the more I thought about it, the more irritated I became that Mel had curtailed my intergalactic viewing pleasure. Mel, who had disappeared into her bedroom when I'd arrived at her Clapham flat, only to reappear an hour later and turn off the TV, was now looking at me intently, as if studying some unknown creature under a microscope. Her face bore the look of someone not annoyed or angry, but intrigued. Even so, I signalled an internal green alert and continued to feel on edge. She stood up, still holding the remote control, and walked across the room to the table in the corner where a bottle of Chardonnay sat. She poured out 2 glasses, put them on the table, seated herself on my lap, and kissed me. Watching her carefully, I began to wonder if she was trying to seduce me. Being seduced was a nice idea, but she really had no need to go to all this effort. When it came to Mel, who was beautiful in a wonderfully understated kind of way, Easy was indeed my first, last and middle name. No, this isn't about seduction, I decided. This is about me doing something wrong. There was something about this whole situation that had a suggestion of forgotten anniversary about it. Only it wasn't our anniversary, was it? It's not our anniversary, I said unsteadily, attempting to add a dash of confidence to my voice. That's not until June the 11th. The 18th, actually. Oh. She smiled and kissed me again. It's not your birthday either. That's not until April 6th. Nearly, she smiled. The 5th. She smiled and kissed me once more. It's not my birthday, is it? I said, grasping at nothing. I can't be so rubbish that I've actually forgotten my own birthday, surely. What are you like? Said Mel, laughing. Your birthday isn't until October the 7th. All out of commemorative occasions, I continued to rack my brain. Mel loved any excuse for a celebration. It was bound to be something strange like the anniversary of the first time we had a Chinese takeaway, or 4 years to the day since we first cooked for each other, or... I've got it, I said victoriously. It's the anniversary of the first day I told you that I loved you. Is it? Said Mel quizzically. Are you sure? I don't know, I sighed. All I could remember about that day in question was that it had been the Friday Channel 4 repeated the very first episode of Cheers. I'd been looking forward to that moment all week, and then 5 minutes before it was about to begin, I felt this sudden urge to tell Mel about the intense emotional turmoil she was causing within my normally placid frame. Such with the sense of exhilaration caused by my outburst, that we ended up missing Cheers altogether. But it was worth it, though. Well worth it. After some moments of quiet contemplation, attempting to work out why Mel had suddenly turned off the TV and was sitting on my lap and acting so strangely, I resorted to basic questioning in order to try and find out what was wrong. Carefully avoiding the question I really want to ask, why have you turned off Star Trek? Like a panther of passion... Just slipping down there. Like a panther of passion stalking her prey, she leaned forward and kissed me again. Slowly, carefully, and seductively. Maybe she was trying to seduce me after all. Can't one be nice to a boyfriend once in a while, she purred. No, yes. I looked at the TV forlornly. If that's all it is. I do have an agenda, she replied, whilst gaily fondling my earlobes. I knew it. So what is it? I asked carefully. It's us. Us, she said calmly. Let's talk about us. And I think we'll pause there. And we'll talk a little bit about... I'll do a few more shout-outs and I'll talk a little bit more about Mr. Commitment and how we wrote it. So the shout-out from Kathleen Claire Kathleen, who says, hello, Mr. G. And Louise Flocco, in reference to the lockdown, says there are two types of people during this. There are those losing weight out of anxiety and those who are gaining it through eating. Hi, Joe. Is Joe Cochrane's watching as well? Good to see you, mate. Let's see. Rebecca Grandison says, what are you reading at the moment? And I am reading it's one of those sort of crime thriller book. The Shooting Party, is that the one? Is that what it's called? It's really good. I'm just getting to the end of it. Kelly says, I'm new to the party book club. Had half a world away and loved it. Thank you very much. Helen says she's a support worker, meaning she works with adults with disabilities. Shout out from Scotland from Tina Marie. Julie Stonehouse says, hi from North Yorkshire. Glad of this tonight. Hubby's in hospital having a cancer op. So sorry to hear that, Julie. Let's all wish Julie's husband. I hope it all goes well. And yes, we're sending all our love. Joe Watterson says, hi from Tamworth. She loved Half a World Away and will buy Mr. Commitment tonight. That's what I like, a commitment to buy Mr. Commitment. Bruce Andrews says, no question, but just say I love your books. Lauren Sparks is asking me whether I lived near Chorlton, and I didn't know. I had a mate who lived in Chorlton, so I just used to go and see her, and I used to love it. Gillian Duffy says she lost all of my books when she moved house and she needs to buy them all again, but she has got a signed copy of the Hope Family calendar. Jilly Carter says she met me in Brumborough. Oh yes, the Wirral, that was it. Yes, I remember that. Never forget that. Now here's someone. Chris van der Kerkhove. Oh man, I'm just mangling people's names here. I said we met briefly at the book fair in Antwerp in the late 90s. Now that was a long time ago, and bizarrely, on that same trip, I ended up on Belgian MTV. It was really weird. It was a really weird trip. It was good. It's good fun though. Let's see. Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Mr. Commitment and how it came to be. So I wrote my Legendary Girlfriend. Let's see, I wrote it 1997-ish. I think. Oh yeah, I wrote it in 1997, and I had to do a follow up. But it was a 2-book deal, and it was funny because I knew that I wanted to do something different to My Legendary Girlfriend. I wanted it to be about a man. I wanted it to be about relationships. But I knew that I didn't want it to be My Legendary Girlfriend Part 2. And I'm not even sure where the idea came from. I think, do you know what? I wonder whether the title came to me first. Because back in those days, an idea would sort of come to me was that I would look for a subject that I was interested in, and I wanted to look at the whole idea of commitment, because back in the 90s it seemed to be it seemed to be like a flashpoint in relationships. People were always talking about commitment and saying that men weren't committed and all the rest of it, and I wanted to look at it. And commitment was always looked through from a female point of view, and I wanted to look at it from a male point of view, because I don't think I'd seen it, and not sort of outright anyway. And as soon as I've sort of made that commitment, made that commitment to the idea, I think everything just sort of grew out of that. I think I sort of feel like Mr. Commitment was the sort of romantic comedy that had just been sitting inside me, waiting to come out, and writing it was an absolute joy. There were some really lovely scenes in there. I love that the bit that I read. I love that opening, and I also loved hopefully it's not going to be a spoiler if you've not read it, but I love. There's some really really nice, funny set pieces, but it's also got lots of heart, and that's what I like about Duffy. So Duffy, he's a temp, but he wants to be but he's a part-time stand-up comedian, and he lives with his with another mate who's a stand-up comedian, and he's someone I just felt a real affinity with, and wanted to sort of catch up with him, and catch up with I just wanted success for him in his relationship, because you sort of feel that he loves his girlfriend, and it's just the idea of getting married sort of throws him out, and really the whole book is about whether or not he can do the long-term thing. And it's one of my all-time favourite books. I mean, I'm going to say this every week, this is one of my all-time favourite books, but I've got a real fond memories of Mr. Commitment, and I love reading from it. So has anyone got any questions about Mr. Commitment? Shout out to Tiffany Gardner, she's back again, hello. Kim Dealey says, me and Deborah Blagg are massive fans. Tina Marie says, I loved hearing you read that. Thank you very much. What else are we... Has anyone got any questions? Oh, someone's saying it's giving a shout out to the Hope Family Calendar and how much they loved it. Amy Heather says, love your books. Can't help but noticing is that an 80s boxing game behind you. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's funny. I kept thinking to myself, should I go somewhere a bit more stylish, or should I, put some potted plants behind? But no, there is indeed pretty much. In fact, actually, it was around the time that I wrote Mr. Commitment. I ended up. It coincided with the rise of eBay. And suddenly, I was in a position to buy everything that I wanted when I was an 11-year-old boy, or probably a 10-year-old boy, and so you'll see there, right there is a massive Godzilla thing. There is a $6 Million Man sort of craft thing, and there is an 80s boxing game. So yeah. Thanks for that question, Amy. Deborah Blagg says, do I still go out in Moseley? Yes, I do. I've not to the fighting cocks, because it takes far too long to get served in there, but I still go out in Moseley. Phil Gale says, Phil, my brother is saying hello to people. Let's say Catherine Bryant says, apart from my own family, who would my lockdown companions be? I'll have to come back to that, because I'll I don't know. Do you know what? To be honest, I get on with most people. So yeah, anybody nice. Gayle Dumont says, looking well. Have you lost weight? Thank you very much. Now she met me a while ago at Kingston University. When I did that Kingston University gig, I was playing football the night before with some mates, and I injured my knee, and I I went all the way down to London just hobbling using a walking stick, and I ended up having to get it scanned, and I've torn my intercruciate ligament or something or other. So yeah, my knee goes funny every now and again. Oh, Janice Hickling says, "Can you do box sets? What box sets of all the books? Do you mean, or TV box sets? I mean, I can talk about telly if you want." Lucy Lucy says, "Love the room you're in. This is my study. This is where I pretty much have written every novel for the past 10 years. What's my favourite from all the books you've written? Well, I think we had this one last week, and it goes My Legendary Girlfriend and whatever else I'm working on, because you have to love what you're working on, I think. But you know, I love them all. I love them all. How long did it take to finish writing Mr. Commitment? It took me about a year door to door, and this is the first book. The interesting thing about this was the first book that I've ever written under contract. So I had people. So when I wrote My Legendary Girlfriend, I didn't have a contact. I'd written the entire thing before I got a book deal, and so this was the very first one that I had to write with the. And there was an expectation of. You know, this is a book that's going to be published in 12 months' time, and you know there's going to be an audience for it, and an expectation for it. So it's funny, you know. I remember talking to people about second album syndrome. You know, bands have these amazing debuts, and then you know their second album can kind of either be absolutely brilliant, or it can be absolutely terrible. Or there's a third option where, or I suppose it's the third or fourth option, where they can just be so overcome by the sort of the problem of having to write another album as good as their first album, that they sort of just end up spending 3 or 4 years on it, like the Stone Roses, and it's never quite as good. So what I love about this is that I did what my rule is I do the best that I can with the time that I've got, and I'm actually really pleased with it. Every time I've read parts from it, apart from a few lines where I think, oh, maybe I should have edited that word in or taken that word out. I've never had any problems with the story, so I'm happy with it. Would I consider? Lisa Nightingale says, "Would you consider reading your books at audio?" No, I wouldn't, because it's a really hard job, and I can barely do a chapter. And it's funny actually. So My Legendary Girlfriend. So before Audible, you used to be able to kind of get audiobooks on a CD or tape or whatever, and the audiobook for Mr. Commitment was read by Jack Davenport of This Life fame, and he's been in all sorts of Hollywood films and things. And I've always wondered what sort of actors do in a sort of bizarre sort of way. I always think, well, they just read other people's words. How hard can that be? And it wasn't until I listened to the audiobook of Mr. Commitment, it was an abridged version that Jack Davenport read, and I think you might be able to you might be able to get it on eBay now or something like that. But he was genuinely, it was amazing what he did. He made lines in Mr. Commitment that I'd intended to be funny, absolutely hilarious, and then he'd made lines that hadn't intended to be funny, just so funny that my eyes were I was just laughing, crying with laughter. And he made some of the poignant lines just really poignant as well. I thought, oh right, okay, that's what actors do. it's amazing. So if you can get hold of that, Jack Davenport reading Mr. Commitment is just amazing. It's like when he does it so brilliantly. You just wish that somebody had made it into a film. Chris Braithwaite says, was writing my second book harder than writing my first book? And I wouldn't necessarily say it was harder. I mean, it was just different. With My Legendary Girlfriend, when I was writing it, I was just writing it for myself, and I wasn't really thinking about the end result so much within the process, I suppose. But with Mr. Commitment, I had an editor. I had a publication date 12 months ahead. It did feel like a lot of pressure, and I suspect that's why I spent a lot of time on eBay buying everything that I wanted when I was 10. Hello, Ruby Ryan. There's a shout out to Ruby Ryan there. Someone says good questions. Janice says, box set of all my books. That's a good idea. I mean, you sort of see. It'd be nice to have a box set, actually, wouldn't it? So you could have everything. Jimmy Jammer says, how do you come up with your character names? It's an interesting one. So when I did when My Legendary Girlfriend came out, I had to do a promotional tour with a bunch of authors from Hodder and Stoughton, and one of them was one of the other authors was Stella Duffy, and she's a real hoot, and she's a real great person. But I just remember just thinking, when I was introduced, I just remember thinking, oh, Duffy, that's a great name. That's just like a really solid name. You can be mates with someone called Duffy, and what I liked about it was that it sort of sounds like a first name as well, but it sounds like a really sort of good solid your mate Duffy sort of name. So that's where Duffy got his name. He's actually named after Stella Duffy. Yeah. Mike Day says, what's my top 10 albums? We'd be here all day with me changing my mind every 5 seconds. John Rowland says, do you find it hard working with editors? It's a funny one because editors initially, so I remember when I wrote My Legendary Girlfriend, I wrote it without I gave it to lots of people, and I finished it, gave it to lots of people, and eventually I got an editor, and I got an agent and an editor, and it was quite a strange process just taking on other people's feedback. But I think you can become so entrenched in a story that you don't know what's good and what's bad. So actually having an editor, an outside person, saying to you, really love what you're doing here, not sure what you're about doing that, beef up this bit in the middle, I want something more emotion from here and here and here. It's I find it invaluable because they give you an outside perspective on what you're doing. And what my editors always make clear is, this story is always mine. It's always my story. I make the ultimate decisions, but what they're doing is just giving you suggestions. And I think it's good to have someone on your side, trying to make the book the best it can be. So yeah, I think editors are really brilliant. Shout out to Rhonda. Says she's from Tamworth, and she's Victoria's mad friend. Please say hi. Lee says, what age range do you recommend for reading your books? I have a 12-year-old who loves to read. I don't know. I don't know. It's funny, actually. I've met a few people who read My Legendary Girlfriend when they were sort of 13, 14. So quite what they made of it, I have no idea. But I don't know. I think that's it. But I have no idea, really. Do I have any Netflix recommendations when we're not reading your books? I've just started season 3 of is it The Ozarks? I enjoyed the last 2 seasons, so that's where I'm at the minute. Um, Terry Duggan Jr. says, "Do I when I start writing a book, do I always know how it will end?" Well, again, across a 20-odd year career, you change what you do, and certainly when I wrote Mr. Commitment, I never used to plan. So I never used to really have an idea of. I had no idea of where it was going to end. But over time, I've sort of started to plan over time, and so I do have, So these days, when I like half a world away, was fully planned out. But Mr. Commitment, no, I didn't. Not until I was sort of finding out as I was writing it where it was all going. Do I still get publisher deadlines? Yes, I do. Yeah. Because the thing is, publishing works so far in advance, and it's one of those things. It's interesting. It's one of the things that it's a real shame about this whole lockdown thing, is that there are people who have had books planned out for these few months, these next coming months, that were planned a year ago, and the real shame of it is a lot of debut authors as well. So this was meant to be their time, their spot, and their chance to gain an audience. And bookshops, a lot of bookshops aren't open, and Amazon deliveries are running late, and it's a real shame. So I do really feel for them. So actually, maybe that's one of the things I should do is do a little bit of a shout out to all the upcoming books that are coming out soon. Let's see. Mike's watching Ozark, so he said it's brilliant. Yeah. Mike Hogan says that my brand new friend is still one of my faves. Kelly says that her 8-year-old is reading Half a World Away. Rhonda says, how is your sister Michelle? Michelle Gayle is not my sister. So what shall I do now? I tell you what, I'm gonna read a little bit more now of Mr. Commitment. So I'll just pick up from where we left off. I felt my whole frame sink heavily into the sofa. I suspected she was up to something, and I was right. Mel had invited me round to her flat on a Thursday night under false pretences. I thought we were going to watch TV and order a Chinese takeaway. Me, chicken kung po, her, king prawn egg foo young, and moan about our days at work, because that's what we always did on Thursdays. But it wasn't to be. Now we were in this horrendous situation where she wanted to talk about us, while all I wanted to do was watch Star Trek. Us. There was never a good reason to talk about us. Talking about us always ended up talking about me. Mel would, metaphorically speaking, get her list entitled Things That Are Wrong with Duffy Part 1 and go through it item by item. I would, of course, nod and murmur in the right places and promise to reform, because, generally speaking, they were usually reasonable requests along the lines of, will you pick up the clothes off the floor sometimes, and how about washing the bath out sometimes, and why don't you look at me the way you used to when we first met? Us. Duffy? Mel asked. How long have we been going out together, that is? I knew the answer to her question, but racked my brains for additional information in case this was a trick. 4 wonderful years, I ventured tentatively. Exactly, she replied. Against my will, my mind began to drift. Right about now, Spock would be heading to this hardware store to buy some chicken wire to aid his efforts to construct a primitive communicator out of a radio set. 4 years is a long time, you know. I interrupted, even though it was very bad to interrupt. I didn't like where this was going at all. It's not that long. If you were a 4-year-old child, you wouldn't even got started going to school yet. You wouldn't be able to read or write. You could probably just about tie your shoelaces. Duffy, don't drivel on, will you? She glared at me, exasperated, then removed herself from my lap and rested her bottom on the arm of the sofa instead, with her stocking feet on the cushion next to me. You know what I'm getting at. I shrugged silently, turning my whole body into a question mark. Do I have to spell it out? No. Yes. Maybe. Duffy, do you love me? Is that all this is about? I asked incredulously. You've got no worries there. I was pleased that was all. Mel quite frequently asked me if I loved her. Sometimes I think she got a bit insecure about us and needed a little reassurance from me. And I was always pleased to give it, because I reached out and held her hand and whispered closely into her ear, I love you, I love you, I love you. She smiled, leaned forward to kiss me and whispered back, then let's get married. I think we should stop there. So let's just see where we are with the questions. Have you thought about doing a sequel, perhaps to Half a World Away? Now, here's a question about that. A question for you, actually. I've only done one sequel, and that was Turning 30 and Turning 40. Well, Turning 40 to Turning 30. And generally speaking, I find them really, really difficult, because I suppose because I put all my heart and soul into sort of getting the story right and then delivering these characters to their ending. And it always feels, to my mind, it feels a little bit unnatural to sort of, unpick their happy ending almost. But a lot of people have been saying, oh, we want a sequel, we'd love a sequel to Half a World Away. And I'm like, oh, part of me just loves the idea, and part of me is just like, but that's a lot of pressure to put on your on yourself, especially when people have felt the way about Half a World Away. It's been amazing, people's reaction to it, but it's like, so I'm not sure. But I am collecting. So if you've got any suggestions for what a sequel to Half a World Away might look like, please send them my way. And maybe I'll have a little think, and maybe that might happen. Janet says, I don't think Half a World Away needs a sequel. Caroline Russell says, do you already have an idea for your next book as you're finishing your current one? And the answer to that is no. I used to always, I always used to go, I'll start a book, and it would always happen in the same place. I'd get to the halfway point, and I would suddenly get this idea for my next novel. And it used to happen like clockwork with every single book I was writing. Until one day I realised that actually it's a form of procrastination. It sort of dawned on me that it's a form of procrastination, because what my brain was saying to me subconsciously was, oh, do you know what? This is really hard. But bing, here's a beautiful, fresh new idea. Why don't you spend time looking at that instead of working on what you should be doing? And it's a distracting tactic. And so what I used to do was just sort of write it down and then put it in a drawer. But then as soon as I worked out what my subconscious was up to, it stopped happening. And so these days, when I finish a book, it's just like, boom, that's it, it's done. I've got no. So it's a strange one. It's a strange one. Thomas Corthaeus says, why do a sequel? The story's been nicely finished. Just look at all the films with rubbish sequels. This is my fear. I mean, if you can tell me, films with good sequels. Oh, I mean, there's a conversation. Are there any films with good sequels? I mean, there must be someone somewhere. I mean, did we, are we putting aside Star Wars because that's Empire Strikes Back was brilliant, but I don't know. Same characters, different situations. I don't know. How do we feel about sequels? I'm just mumbling to myself here. Rebecca Wells says, out of all the characters, do I have a favourite? I've got a fondness for Will from My Legendary Girlfriend. and I've got a real fondness for Kerry from Half a World Away. But, I love them all, and that's my official line. Suzanne Opal says, before sunset and before midnight. Now, I would have said yes, except that I do have a preference for those two films. They are both really good, but Before Sunset is better than Before Midnight. It just is. So Paul Harry says Terminator 2. I can't even remember Terminator 2, but I suspect you may well be right there. Lucy Highgate says Final Destination 2. Now, I can't remember. I have seen it, but I can't remember it. Chris van der Kerkhover says Godfather 2. Now, and so does Catherine Bryant. Now, this is something I can speak on with authority because I watched... I thought I'd seen The Godfather and The Godfather 2, and it turned out that I hadn't, and so I decided to watch both since lockdown, actually. And The Godfather is a significantly better film than The Godfather 2. It's just got more nuance to it, in my opinion. I'm not really sure that it holds up. Although, Robert De Niro got an Oscar for The Godfather 2, so what do I know? Lots of people saying The Godfather 2, excellent sequel. Blade 2. Says Alex. Alex says Blade 2. Oh. Now you see, again with the Blade films, I remember watching the first Blade film and just being blown away, and in fact loving it so much that I went back to see it the next night. So again, I'm gonna have to say, there's nothing beats not knowing what you're going into. So in my opinion, we're just going to get into a film debate here, aren't we? Suzanne agrees with me. She says Before Sunset is my favourite movie. So yeah, this is it. And what you want, if it's not, I suppose the question is, if it's not going to be as good as or better than the original, you've got to ask yourself, should you be doing it? All right, Sky Parker's just popped in. Hello there, Sky. Hope you're well. Kelly Spencer says, my friend Paige runs a book club. Can you recommend another book for us, please? Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'll tell you what, here's some books that are coming up soon. So there's this is a proof of Jane Fallon's new one that's coming out. I'm not sure when it's coming out. It's coming out soon. It's called Queen Bee, and that's really good. We've got The Switch by Beth O'Leary, and she wrote The Flat Share. That's it. She wrote The Flat Share, and this is really good, really funny. And pardon me. Josie Lloyd wrote the Cancer Ladies Running Club. These books haven't come out yet, so that's probably not brilliant for your book club thing. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to come back to you. Maybe next week I'll come back to you with something. Lucy Highgate says, no, Godfather 1 is the best. The best of all films ever. Katie Amazon makes the point about Toy Story 2, 3 and 4. Yeah. Jane Christie says, Sean says hello. Hello, Sean. I haven't seen you in about a gazillion years. So, hello, Sean. Louise says, sorry, I've started a debate. Joe Stiles is putting her tuppence in with Police Academy 2. Nick Corson makes a point about the Alien films. Grease 2. Has anyone seen... Well, clearly you've seen Grease 2. I've not seen Grease 2, and I can't imagine that it's very good. Oh, we've got a whole thing here about films now. Is resistant to my bookshelves, says somebody. No, it's they go where they can find space. The only thing they have in common is that they're all mine. So the rest of the books, they're all mix of my family's, but these are all mine. Someone says, Gillian says, have I ever thought about writing in a different genre? I think about it all the time, because you want it's nice to be able to kind of flex your sort of muscles. So I'd love to. It's finding the time, I suppose, and coming up with the right idea, and but it'd have to be really good for me to sort of have a go. William Willett says, do my books change much as I write them? And yeah, they do. They change and they grow. I mean, it's funny, you start with an idea and it's just like a little seed of an idea, and it goes in all sorts of places, and then so they can end up being radically different from your original idea, but that's good. I think it's nice. It's nice that they sort of. It is a lot like planting a seed and them growing, and then you seeing what they're actually like once you've planted them. So I do like that. People having discussion here about amongst themselves. I like that. Just make friends. That's it. I'm just here to entertain you and bring you all together. That's nice. Lawrence Park says Grease 2 has Michelle Pfeiffer in leather. Right. He goes out and finds Grease 2. What am I working on? Suzanne Griffin says, what am I working on at the moment? So I'm working on the book for... what year we're in? 2020. The book for summer 2021. Whether that, but I mean, who knows? You say it's for there's no guarantee of anything these days. But that's what I'm working on right now. But the new book, I might talk more about the new book at some point. But there is a new book coming this summer. It's due out in July 23rd is the new book, and it's called All the Lonely People, but I'll talk more about that in probably later. So I think we're probably coming to an end. I can't, every time we do this, I kind of think to myself, am I really going to talk for an hour? I go, I've got nothing to say. And I just like the fact that we've basically spent a long, last 10 minutes talking about which are our favourite sequels. But anyway, we've mainly been talking about Mr. Commitment. I really love this book. It's a really funny romantic comedy. So give it a read if you can. My voice is going slightly, but thank you so much for, I was going to say tuning in like I'm some sort of TV presenter, but thank you very much for being here. Without it, I'm just a man talking to his phone in a room on his own. Please, we're next week, all being well, we'll be doing Turning 30. We'll be doing Turning 30, so all your questions, Turning 30 related questions, would be great. And it would be great to, if you've got questions, it'd be great to hear them. I'll do a reading from Turning 30. I'll have a look around for books to recommend as well. I'll also clean my glasses, which I've just noticed seem a little bit smudgy. But thank you so much for coming along. You've absolutely made my day, and it's funny actually with this sort of lockdown thing. It's easy to sort of, I sort of miss my mates and I miss going out, and this is something really nice to sort of look forward to. So thanks so much for coming along. I hope I haven't bored you. But yeah, please spread the word. I'm going to try and do an event reminder, but also if you like my author page, that should let you know as well when these are going on. But I am going to put it, it'll be up on my Facebook pages afterwards anyway, and I'm putting them on YouTube as well. So for anybody who doesn't do Facebook or people who don't do Facebook, at least they can get access to it. And yeah, if you do know of any library pages actually that might like it, let me know, because that will be nice. I'll finish with a couple of shout outs. So let me see. Amy says, thank you for your descriptions of toast and IKEA rows. Thank you. Kate says, thank you for the Monday evening chat. See you later, Halwen. Lisa says, thanks for the hour. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to next week. And Joe Star says, are you off to watch Liar on ITV? No, I'm not, but I don't think my voice can stop. Anyway, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for tuning in, and take care, and I'll see you next week, all being well. Take care. Bye.